from Microsoft Canada, and I'm very happy to be joined by Aidan Ermey from New Signature and the terrific New Signature team. Today's session, we're going to complete our review of the Operations Management Suite. We did a first webcast earlier this week where we focused in on the backup and DR pieces of site recovery. From the list of the attendees, I think we have some folks who weren't at that webcast. We did record it, so you can refresh your memory of that. We'll do a little bit of a perspective on Operations Management Suite. We'll cover some pricing, which is why we think this is such an interesting and compelling option for education. And then I'll hand it over to Aidan to take you through some visuals of the most interesting and most visually interesting part of Operations Management Suite, which is the operational insights or the log analytics component of the platform. So just to start, let's take a quick look at the basics of OMS. And what you'll see with OMS in a long-term strategic perspective is how it's creating a management as a platform service that you can leverage to transform the way you do IT. I look at this as Data Center 3.0, where we can really take advantage of the kind of reporting, analytics, and tooling to reduce the cost of managing your services wherever they are. I forgot to mention, and I will reiterate just briefly, that what we'll do for the session is have you post questions you have to the IM panel, so please feel free to do that. If we can take the questions as we go, we will. Otherwise, we'll take questions at the end. So if you don't mind, that's how we will run the session. But back to our topic. So OMS is really that set of solutions to give you the building blocks for the next generation of your management capabilities. So the kind of tooling that today would either be complex to deploy on premises or might be a difficult project to prioritize over all the other things you need to do. We think we can give you a great solution that brings all those pieces together and deliver it as a service. So this is the big picture of OMS. Let's move forward and talk about what's in the bucket for OMS. And how that fits into our strategy. So if you think about where we've come from as Microsoft, our vision for System Center originally was, first, how do we manage Microsoft better? What you'll see here is how we have changed into a model where we cannot just manage Microsoft technologies, we manage all sorts of technologies, which is really critical in education. So it's heterogeneous, it's open, it's cloud-inspired and cloud-integrated, and it is all wrapped around everything we've learned from the years of System Center. It works alongside System Center. You'll see how this comes together. So there's definitely a better together story. And then there's an all-cloud story. So we're going to give you lots of options as how you want to slice this. But this is a very rich and capable platform that is just that next generation of how we make management easier and better. So on to the next slide. And these are the pieces that are in the Operations Management Suite. The previous session was, as Lindsay has posted, budget price DR and backup. So that's Azure Site Recovery for disaster recovery. That can be site to site or site to Azure. And we covered that really nicely in the session that Aidan did with us earlier this week. Azure Backup for backup disk to cloud or just straight to cloud to give you a cheaper platform to back your server assets up to. Today, we're going to look at the other pieces in the puzzle, which is that log analytics, the IT insights piece, a bit on that operational efficiency, which is how do we take all this and make this a better and more flexible platform, and we'll touch a little bit on the security and compliance aspects of OMS. The most interesting angle is that arrow to the top right. This is a platform that's changing and evolving all the time. There's a great roadmap where we've come out and publicly talked about things like, for example, the ability to patch Linux. So we're adding that into the platform, and you will see this as a very aggressively enhancing and transforming suite going forward. So a great platform to look at and one to really strategically focus on going forward. So next slide. Aidan, can we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks.
This one? Sorry, so we're on the OMS add-on value for education?
Correct.
Do you
That's
see
what
that?
we want to go to.
Yeah, we're there.
Not as yet. Okay, good.
Oh, can anyone else confirm that they're seeing
Yep, I see
the
it.
OMS add-on fine? Okay, thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, so that's, I guess we'll, I got a bit of a glitch here, so we'll keep going. One of the reasons why we think this is a great option for education customers is the pricing. So we talked about it's a better together story from an integration perspective with System Center. The other reason why it's a great better together story is licensing. So we provide, or you can purchase OMS as an add-on to System Center, which means if you have a System Center license on premises, both standard and data center, you purchase OMS as an add-on to that. And this slide goes through what that looks like. So in the case of a System Center standard deployment, I've included the price if you had to buy System Center standard off the top. But in essence, if you are protecting with the OMS add-on, you get the OMS services for disaster recovery for 2 servers, for backup for 2 servers, the other components layered on top. Effectively, if you were going to use disaster recovery for 1 server, that pretty much justifies and pays for the whole solution. So it's a very cost-effective way to get these capabilities, and the data in the chart walks through that. Can we go to the next slide, Aidan?
Yep. So with the data center version?
Yes. So the way data center plays out is same principle around the add-on. So you purchase System Center, data center, and you get the OMS add-on, and in this case, it's 10 servers that you would protect to Azure, or 10 VMs or 10 servers that you would back up to Azure. So those are the key components, and that's where those the cost numbers shake out. But if you're protecting at least 2 servers or thinking about that for disaster recovery, this is the cheapest way to get to disaster recovery or backup, and you get all those other components along with it. So what we're going to show you today with log analytics, process automation, and desired state configuration, in essence, simply add on top. So we feel that this is a great option to help you get both what you need to do today and what you will need to have going forward. So if we can move on to really the last slide in the introduction, which is a bit of the positioning around where OMS fits in this landscape. So this is not just for services that run in Azure. This is for services that run in Azure, on premises, or in other clouds. And you'll notice that it can work with a number of different types of clouds. So part of that heterogeneous world, obviously if you run VMware, we want to work with anything that runs on VMware. We want to work with something that with OpenStack deployment. So a very, very open, very, very heterogeneous approach to management. It needs to work for every different scenario. So with that, I'm going to just mention briefly that in our previous session, and Lindsay posted up the link to that, we did spend more time talking about pricing and more time talking about planning, especially around site recovery and backup. So I would suggest if you want to dig into those numbers, let's redirect you to take a look at the YouTube link, and you can quickly familiarize yourself with that. But we do want to spend a good chunk of this time letting you see the terrific services that are in the log analytics and the other management components. So with that, let me pass it over to Aidan to take us through that. Aidan, over to you.
Thanks, Karen. There's just a quick question in the IM about pricing in relation to only wanting log analytics. Are you able to maybe speak to that, or we can cycle back to that afterwards?
Just gone on mute. So you can purchase. Sure, I'll touch on that briefly, Aidan. So okay. These products you can purchase as standalone components. So when you look at log analytics, if that is really your core scenario, you can take a quick look. If you take a look at any of the Azure pricing websites, that'll give you a pretty good idea on how we price that out. So absolutely everything is available as a standalone component. We simply look at OMS as a way that if you were going to do disaster recovery anyways, you can get log analytics pretty much at no cost for a good chunk of that. So everything's available standalone that you see in the OMS components.
Thank you, Karen. So hopefully that answered your question there, Mark. If you want further clarification, then we can continue afterwards on that for you. So as Karen mentioned, just to kind of reiterate, with the Operations Management Suite, OMS as we call it for short, the key focus around this is that it's not just a Microsoft Space product. It encompasses stuff that you're running in Azure, stuff that you're running in other cloud providers like AWS, and things on premise, whether that's physical systems, whether that's virtual systems, or even if you're using things like VMware, OpenStack, and it's not specific just to Windows, but also Linux systems as well. So it's one big happy family working in this type of space and in the world going forward. We all work together and to make the best experience to really aid our customers in achieving the insights into their environment wherever that may be running. So just briefly, with the log analytics piece, this is really the most powerful feature that we have to look at in OMS, and we'll go through some demonstrations to see how this works. But instead of just, shooting up alerts for issues in the environment, it actually helps you get through all of that noise. If you're familiar with common monitoring platforms like System Center Operations Manager, Nagios, and things like that, you may get a lot of alerts, but it might be hard to figure out exactly what you need to focus on and what is happening in the environment overall. With OMS, it takes that data and really gives you business intelligence and actionable business data against logs and against changes and things that it sees going on in the environment. We have things built into this product called solutions, where the Microsoft teams that specialize in these various spaces like Active Directory and SQL, linking into SCOM, capacity planning and so forth, system updating, all of these things tie together to give you that better business intelligence about why things are happening, and also gives you guidance in what you want to look at first and what might be a higher priority to correct, and guide you through that process. So tying in with the security compliance, this is a hot topic as well. Compliance is a big deal no matter where you may work, but it may be hard to understand and see across multiple environments, whether you're in multiple clouds or on-prem in different scenarios, where certain patches may be missing, are they critical, or security and things of this nature. So we'll actually go into some examples in the environment to see how that works, to see the value that we receive out of this product. So we will flip over to our demo environment. Give me a moment to do that. 1 second here. And let me show my browser. So if someone can confirm that you're able to see my browser in a minute. So if someone can just confirm that we can see.
Now we can see it.
Oh,
it had gone away
sorry.
for a second.
Yep, I just got your message. Sorry, thanks, Lindsay. I was just flipping back to the chat to see if someone had pinged it. So, okay, thank you. So this is the Operations Management Suite. It's built into the portal platform here. And you see all of these tiles are different solutions that are enabled and will collect data from the various systems we connect to OMS and give us this business intelligence, this actionable data. So as an example, let's first start with a brief reference like we did previously earlier in the week, where we can connect different types of systems. So whether we're working off of Windows or Linux environments, we can connect and configure multiple operations manager management groups and send data directly from that. So there's an integration component there, as well as Azure storage accounts, which tie into virtual machines that we're running in Azure and getting those Azure diagnostic logs there. So, and we see coming soon will be the AWS storage accounts. So again, not just a Microsoft world, not just a Windows space, but better together, everyone working together to make this work the best across all of these types of platforms. So when we connect systems up to OMS, we can configure what type of log data we want to receive and ingest, and thus being able to analyze and be able to provide that more valuable business and actionable intelligence. So we see here under data some of the options around Windows event logs that we've turned on. We have performance counters that we're collecting, even Linux performance counters and IIS logs, but also of interesting and important note that we can have custom fields and custom logs will be coming soon. So if you have a in-house custom developed application and it's writing logs to various directories or locations, you can ingest that into OMS and be able to give business intelligence and visualization off of that data as well coming shortly. So so that's something to keep in mind, that it's not, again, not just Windows and Linux, but even some custom stuff that will make it even more valuable in the future. So on our main page, let's go into the log search, because this is where everything starts. So within the log search and the analytics space, Microsoft has all of these pre-built safe searches based on the solutions that they've made available in the product. So we see things on security and audit and change tracking, configuration assessments, and SQL and so forth. These are all built out of the box to get you started, and makes it really easy to kind of get going right away. But let's just start by searching for star, which is basically everything that's in there, to see what data we get pulled back. So by default, it's going to go to the last day. We can scope that to a different granularity if we want to, depending on what we want to see. Let's go to 7 days so we have a little bit more data to work with. And it'll pull back the results that it's ingested. Give that a moment to do so. There we go. And what's nice, when you just search for everything, there's actually near real-time performance monitoring and display of what's happening in the environment based on the data it's reading back. So you can even further expand these out to be able to drill down and see the values within those spaces as it's ingesting that data. So that's a quite useful and powerful feature with the product. But let's start with some of the security stuff to see how this is built on the log analytics and how we can customize it for our needs. In security and audit, we get a breakdown on various different things that tie into this type of category. So we got malware assessments, updates that might be missing, ties into Azure Security Center, threat analytics and intelligence is in preview if you've been following around that. A brief comment about that would be if you have systems connected into this and they're trying to communicate with a malicious IP, that it will list that here and show you where the incoming and outgoing traffic is going to help you better be aware of what's happening either in your environment on-prem or against your systems in Azure or other cloud providers. So let's drill into the update assessments option. Here, again, all these visualizations, all of this data is built on that log analytics and the intelligence built into the solutions behind the scenes. It gives us a breakdown on critical or security updates that are missing and by what system, by age as well. So if we want to see if we're kind of out of alignment by a couple of months or more, this helps break that down further. And also, a breakdown between security or critical updates to see what's missing so you can focus more acutely towards what you want to address right away and what things you might want to leave for another time. So it also provides common queries. Again, all of these visualizations are built off of queries like this to help you further drill into and refine that search to see what you specifically want to see. So we're going to click on this critical and security updates visualization, and it actually shows you this is the search query that drives that visualization. So again, it's all built on these log analytics. It's not that you can't customize anything. It's all built behind the scenes on this log searching. So something I want to point out here, which is really nice, especially around updates. We all know that we have to do patch management. Maybe we're on a monthly cycle or a quarterly cycle for patching various key systems. This will not only identify missing patches, but here it also provides an average installation time to catch up on that patching. So a great example would be, let's say you have a maintenance window of 4 hours on a weekend on a Saturday. But by hooking these systems up to OMS and it being able to report on the average amount of time to apply these missing updates, we see 28 minutes on average, we could effectively shrink our maintenance window. Maybe we wouldn't put it to half an hour, maybe we could shrink it by half to 2 hours and still be able to apply everything within that window. So again, it continues to assist in having uptime and availability for your critical business workloads and being able to shrink that maintenance window where applicable. So we're going to customize this search that's built out of the box here. So let's say we're only interested in updates that are applicable to Server 2012 R2. We could type this up in the query language here, or we can just select it as it gives us some filters here and hit apply, and it will add that into that query language and filter the results that we see. Okay, so we've applied that. Now let's scroll down a little bit further. And let's say we're only interested in critical updates, and we'll apply that change as well. So we see it's very simple to filter down exactly to what we want to see. It gives us all of this data and visualization. But let's say we've customized this search. This is exactly that, I in IT operations, or as director of operations, we want to see how the environment is as a whole in a snapshot. Let's save this query that we've just customized. So we built it off of what comes out of the box to get us started, so we didn't have to start writing all of this query string by hand from scratch. So we're going to just call it test because that's easy to find. We'll give it a category of test, and we're going to save that query. Okay, now it's saved. So another important point is once we have a customized query, we can actually customize an alert rule based on that search. So we could create a rule here and say if the value returned is greater than 10 or less than 100, whatever we kind of want, that we want OMS to trigger an alert, and we can email individual people, we can email a distribution list, maybe the patch management team, and more importantly, tying in with the automation and DSC stuff, we can enable a runbook against this alert. So this alert gets triggered, maybe it does email someone so that at least somebody is aware, but we can tie it into our Azure Automation account, and if we had a runbook here, we could select that runbook to be automatically triggered when this gets fired. Also of important note around the Azure Automation, we see we have the option to run on Azure or this hybrid worker. So let's say we're alerting and collecting these metrics against something on premises, not a VM running in Azure. Well, the hybrid worker role allows you to run Azure Automation runbooks against on-premise systems. So if we set up a system to be our hybrid worker that it channels through, we could add that here as well. So maybe certain patches were missing, or a certain scenario like performance, memory allocation, CPU utilization on Hyper-V hosts and so forth. Something of those scenarios we can take, plug that data into OMS, and trigger an alert and an automated remediation or a stopgap, put a Band-Aid on it so that it works, and then maybe send an email to alert someone to maybe do a more final check here if we want to. So there's a lot of power around tying in to the OMS log analytics and also being able to alert and automate remediation out of what's occurring in the environment. So let's go to the My Dashboard screen. The dashboard here is where you can individually customize what you want to see, what's important to you. So let's say if you're the SQL guy or the AD guy, security guy, and you want to come in the morning and just quickly see how is my environment doing, what do I need to focus on? Based on the custom searches that we build, either from scratch or on top of what Microsoft provides in the solution out of the box, we're able to customize our own personal dashboard so that we can come in here and see exactly what we are interested in and be able to take action on that. So we're going to customize this dashboard, and we see, again, we have the pre-built searches that Microsoft has provided through these solutions that are currently present in the environment. If we scroll down far enough, alphabetically, we see here's our test category that we created, and here's our test custom log search that we built. So we can hit the plus and add it onto our dashboard here. Scroll back up and go to edit. So right now we just have a timeline with a little bar graph. Maybe that's not really as effective to really help us see or know right away what the information stands for. We can change it to a different visualization, like a line graph if we want, but in this case, maybe it's better, maybe it's better to change it to just a straight number. So this, if you recall, this search customization was number of critical patches missing against Server 2012 R2. So obviously you would name it a little bit more effectively, although I have not in this case, but seeing a tile with just a number is helpful We can also customize it further and turn on a threshold. So again, the threshold may or may not be the same as the alert that if we tailored it to generate an alert, it could be the same. But in the tile, we could turn on the threshold and say, if this number is over 10, then we want it to be highlighted. So we notice that the color changed, so it draws our attention more effectively and directly to this. And then we can hit off of it, and it's applied automatically. So we can change under, over for the value. So again, when we are in our dashboard here, the colors will change to draw our attention so that we know, oh, this is actually something I need to look at right away because it is above or below the threshold I've defined. And if we click customize again, so we go back to the normal dashboard, we can drill into that search directly. So then it brings us back to the log analytics. We can see the direct results that it's spitting out from here, the systems that are being affected, or again, giving us some of that visualization specific to what we've customized for that log specifically. Well, let's go back to the main page for a moment just to discuss some of the other solutions that are built upon this analytics and intelligence componentry. So if we just quickly look in the solution gallery, we'll see there's many items available within here. Some of them you see they're labeled as coming soon, so they're in progress. Microsoft is working on them. Some of them are labeled as in preview, or in private preview in this case, so they will be eventually released in general public preview and then to GA, and then we'll be able to use them, but it gives you an idea of what is coming down the pipe that might also apply to something in your environment. For example, network analytics, upgrade analytics, Office 365. If you attended this session earlier this week, we have insight into our Azure site recovery and how that is effectively working, as well as Azure Backup is in here as well to tell you how many systems have been backed up, how much data we're consuming when we're storing that data in Azure, as well as malware, security, change tracking, and so forth. And an interesting solution that will be coming, if anyone's familiar with System Center Operations Manager, so SCOM for short, when you have to build a model, a distributed application model for your application to say these are the pieces that are connected, and it can be challenging to link those pieces together and get it correct. You have to work with the developers and all the other areas that may be affected. This new solution that will be coming soon automatically builds your application dependency model for you. And then through that, you can trigger alerts in OMS, you can trigger remediation through Azure Automation runbooks based on things that are happening specific to that business and mission critical application. So there's lots of awesome information available on each of these solutions. If you click on it, it'll give you a further description about what it does, what it needs. Some of the solutions do have a dependency on Operations Manager, but the majority do not. I'm going to check to see if there's any questions. It injects JavaScript. That's a good question. I don't know if it does direct injection with JavaScript. I'd have to look that up. If I'll make a note of that to get that information for you. But definitely a good question. One other thing I want to bring to your attention, again, we're not just a Microsoft shop, it's not just Windows and Linux even. You'll see further down here, if I can find where it went, there it is, alert management. We see alerts raised by Nagios, alerts raised by Zabbix. So other even open source third-party tooling that you may have in your environment can be leveraged and used and tied into even alert management within OMS. So it can pull all of that data together, and you can trigger, again, emails off of those alerts and automation runbooks for correction or remediation to those types of issues. Sent to SMS via text. That's a good question as well. Let me just make this a bit smaller. So I'm not 100% sure if there's any limitation around sending alerts directly to SMS. I know in like SCOM there's features around like text to send that out, paging out. If it's not currently available, I'll have to check to see if there's a feature that allows us to work with that. If it's not currently available today, then I would not be surprised to hear it coming in the future. Again, the Operations Management Suite is a product that's on top of System Center. So it would make it would be logical that that option would be in the future as well. But I don't know definitively right now if there's an SMS option around that. But good question. Just going to scroll up in the chat to see if there's any other questions or if anyone else can call out questions that I might have missed. Racing. Okay. So let's just continue a little bit to see the power of this log analytics and all this data that we're collecting, performance data. Most environments, I would say, have Active Directory. Most will use a database system, whether that's SQL or not. But one of the nice solutions in this product, built on that analytics, built on that business intelligence behind the scenes, to help you get to the root cause of issues within your environment, are these Active Directory and SQL assessments. So I'm going to use the SQL assessment one as an option because there's a little bit more to be able to visualize here. So this solution is actually built based on Microsoft working with their PFEs that specialize in this specific technology, built on the teams that write the code for these technologies and best practices from many years of experience internally and externally to Microsoft. So with these assessment solutions, it provides guidance around things that you may be missing around security, availability, even performance, as well as, if there was applicable, upgrading and migration to other platforms or upgraded platforms. And if you're familiar with SCOM, where you install, you import the SQL management pack, and then all of a sudden you get 1,000 alerts. Well, 1,000's an exaggeration. Say you get a couple hundred alerts right away because nothing's been tuned yet. And it takes a bit to tune that to your environment and really make it effective and valuable to you as an organization. With the assessment solutions that are currently available, with more to come in the future, Microsoft takes the pain out of that and analyzes the environment and gives you guidance and recommendations, but also prioritizes what you want to look at first. So we see under performance and scalability, it gives us some visualization so that we can see how well we're doing, but then recommendations on things that we might want to look at, and weighted based on percentages, based on complexity, and how likely it is a critical issue potentially in your environment, and how complicated it may be to correct that. So if we click on any of these recommendations, we'll see that we drill into this focus area here, and it further elaborates on each of these recommendations, but also provides suggested actions and gives you guidance on how to remediate or correct this potential issue it's discovered in your environment. So we see the impact is set to high, it's probability is low or medium, but the effort is a low effort to correct this. What systems are affected by this and the context around this. So Microsoft has done a lot of work to really bring value to this assessment solutions for Active Directory and SQL currently today, so that you can connect your domain controllers, your SQL servers into OMS. There's no write action. It's read only. It's just reading information about configuration and what's happening in the environment. It never tries to write things back to those systems. So there's no security concern there. It's just read only. And then providing you guidance and saying, hey, you might not have known that there is an issue with your temp database files or some other configuration or connection. Here's maybe why you want to look at this, and here's some guidance to help you potentially correct and address that issue and the systems that may be affected by this. So they've done a lot of work around this, and it's really, really helpful to dig in to give you that actionable business intelligence data. So not just a flood alerts as we're used to with other products, but more, hey, based on what we've seen in the environment and noticed on our best practices and our personal experience with these products, because, well, they wrote them, here's what you might want to take a look at and why, and here's the guidance on correcting these types of issues. If we drill into this, we see, again, all of this is built off of that log analytics, the data behind the scenes that it pulls in and reads and aggregates for us. So we could write this search query by hand, or we can further modify it, again, with our quick filtering on the left. If we wanted to drill into one specific system or specific affected objects and so forth, we can customize that further and save that as a custom search, and then add that again, like we showed, into our our personal dashboard, and be able to action that a little bit more quickly. Another nice feature built into this is the change tracking, because things always happen and change in the environment. Something breaks, and then everyone asks, okay, what happened? What do we have to do to fix it, and why did it happen in the first place? With the change tracking, again, it breaks things down by changes to configuration, so software changes, services changes, even software application breakdown, and further Windows services, which specific systems have been affected by this. Again, built all on the log analytics and that business intelligence behind the scenes, but it really helps you to be able to drill down specifically, even against specific servers or workstations that you're reporting data from, but really helps you to visualize more effectively at a high level as well, to see what's happening within that environment. So are there any questions around some of those solutions or any other scenarios that people are considering in their environment that they might want to expand it upon? We're good on the questions. If there is, just put it into the IM window. It'll flash for me here. Oh, I see someone's typing. I'll wait a minute. So while we wait for that possible question to come in, you may question or want to know, well, how much data are we using or ingesting from this product? So that's a good question, and I'll get to your question in a second there, Kevin. With the data, it's dependent on what solutions you enable. So for example, if you were to enable wire data, so collecting information around your networks, the Azure Network Analytics, again, anything running in Azure and the network stuff around there. That may be a little bit more data and resource intensive. So you might want to just start by turning on a couple of key solutions to get that value. Really, really valuable are those two assessment options around SQL and Active Directory. Very, very useful. And that security and audit updating and malware stuff are useful out of the box as well. Once you've turned on a number of solutions, on the main page, we can go under usage, and it'll actually break down and tell us how much data has been sent into the OMS system today in the last X number of days to see if there's any spike. You can correlate this with turning on one of the network specific solutions, and you can see, oh, well, it just increased by 15%. So you can kind of gauge what that may cost, but also it gives you the breakdown per solution. So log management, changes, security related stuff, and it really helps you to break that down. If you see, oh, well, we're using and consuming a lot of data specific to the network stuff, if that was the solution turned on here, you might want to turn that off or scale that down to the number of systems that you want to ingest data about that. And then it helps you give you that the estimated cost that this would cost within that time. Again, I know these prices are different because this is a demo environment and the education space has different pricing, so this would obviously be adjusted. Let me check on that question. A world view of the client accessing my web application. So you want to know where your end users or customers are accessing externally and not within your organization, correct? Okay. So that may tie into that solution that's not currently available just yet with that application dependency monitor. This builds out that model. I don't have a lot of information of exactly what else this brings to the table just yet externally, but the feature that you're kind of referring to ties into the SCOM GSM a product where you can monitor performance from different locations in the world so that you can see how well your application is responding to, say, someone in North America versus say, in Europe or Asia or other further locations, depending on where your application is hosted. But that's definitely a good question. So I don't know of anything definitively that would just automatically track every person accessing your application out in. But that's a good takeaway. I can do some research on that for you. If we'll grab people's contact information afterwards, Lindsay, so that we can be able to follow up on that for you. Good question, though, Kevin. There might be some concern or challenges around not personal information, but security in relation to, end user tracking. There might be some sensitivity around that. But maybe change so you don't have specific customer info, but they say, oh, they from this kind of general location. That might be more applicable. But I'll have to see if there's anything in the works. How secure is the log data forwarded into OMS? Yeah. So good question. So the data that's in OMS, when it's coming from your on-site, if you're talking about on-site in versus anything running in Azure, it's encrypted, so it's your data. It's not shared with anyone else. Even the OMS workspace that we have here is all the log data is stored in a customer-specific storage account to you. So even though it's stored in Azure, it's not shared storage with anybody else. It's specific to each customer, so each workspace has its own dedicated storage allocation. And the data plans specifically dictate how long that data is actually stored in Azure. So it'll give you the breakdown on the different tiers are how long it's kept, and then after that the data is no longer kept. So I believe currently the longest duration is a year at the premium level. That may change in the future, I'm not sure. But currently it's the free tier. If you want to get up and running, the free tier is at a week, the standard tier is a month, and the premium tier is for a year. So really simple, really easy to get started, really easy to integrate with existing systems like we showed Zabbix and Nagios, integrating with SCOM, very easy to do to send data through into that product to even start testing and evaluating. And speaking of kind of initiating and testing with the product, if anyone is interested in just connecting it up to a couple systems to see what type of value you could get out of your specific environment, Microsoft has a OMS one-day POC program that we at New Signature are able to deliver for you. It's completely funded by Microsoft. We come on site, we connect a couple of key workload systems into OMS. We get you a workspace set up for you so that you can start pulling in some data to see the value, the business value that you would receive from this type of product. So if anyone's interested in that, I'm sure Karen or Lindsay from us from New Signature or Microsoft can assist you with that program if you want to start to kind of see more applicable to your environment what you get out of that. So let me just quickly flip back so I don't forget to do this. Let's just flip back to the slides for a quick second to do a quick summary, and then we can continue any other conversations. Okay, so as a summary, just with OMS, because there's a lot of there's some confusion around, oh, well, if it's like a monitoring tool, does it replace System Sender? And the answer to that is no. OMS is built as a complement to things like SCOM and SCCM, and backup like DPM and so forth. It really helps you add to those products and give you more of that business intelligence, that actionable data, so that you can see at a high level where things are at within your environment, and then thus further be able to drill down into more details to see what's happening and help you to take action against that. So our session on earlier this week, on Tuesday I believe it was, we covered backup and recovery. So I believe Lindsay posted the link to the recording for that, so go check that out if you weren't able to attend, where OMS gives you that insight into the amount of data you're backing up. Your ASR is a really powerful disaster recovery scenario and is also a good product to help you migrate on-premise systems into Azure. So physical VMware, virtual machines, and also protect other cloud solutions like AWS as well. So definitely check out that recording to drill into that a bit further. Today we looked at the log analytics, where we get to correlate a lot of data from different systems across different components. So we drilled into by OS versus patch level and all the different assessments and so forth. So it really gives us that power to see what's happening quickly. Say, here's something we need to address. We can trigger an alert against it, and we can trigger automation against that, or at least in a high level, have our own custom dashboards to visualize what's happening in the environment at a high level and be able to drill further into that. With the IT automation, like we demonstrated and mentioned, we can trigger automation runbooks, not just in Azure Automation against stuff running in Azure, but against systems in AWS, things on premises in that hybrid worker model, so that we can have that automation wherever we are, but a central location to be able to develop our runbooks, to have change control against those, and even apply things like desired state configuration, which we didn't go into a demo of, but allows us to really control our environment at a configuration level. So let's say we have a bank of web servers, and it has these key web server roles and functions installed, and maybe someone has a local admin access to it, and they change that. They add something or remove something that they shouldn't have. With desired state configuration and the automation engines, it can detect that and alert you and saying, hey, this web server does not apply, or no longer applies, or aligns rather, to our desired state. It's out of compliance. It can alert you to that so that you can react to it yourself as a human, or you can tell it to automatically remediate that and bring that system back into that compliance level. With security and compliance tying in with that, again, we have malware assessment, we have threat detection for malicious IPs and areas that are trying to get into our system, or if our system has been compromised, where it's trying to communicate to, so that we can, again, more quickly, more proactively react to things so that we can contain it if there's a problem, and then also effectively being able to show across our entire environment how we stand at a security aspect, at a system update level, where we are on key systems or overall, so that we can be able to report against that more easily and effectively, but also we can automate remediation against that. We can trigger patching and schedule patching through OMS in the future against those systems to bring us to that security compliance level that we want to be at. And for that, so that's kind of a summary of what we've covered today with analytics, security, and automation. Were there any other questions or anything else anyone wanted me to dig into a little bit more deeper? I don't.
Okay, it sounds like that's it. Aiden, is that all you were going to present to?
Yeah, that covers what we were going to see. If there's any other questions later on, or if you go back to your teams and maybe there's a scenario that you didn't think of currently, just reach out to us, to Microsoft or to New Signature, and we can be able to help address key scenarios that you might be interested in. And like we mentioned, with OMS, Microsoft has that program that is no cost to any of the customers. We can do a one-day POC and get you connected up to see the value from the environment. And one thing that I didn't mention, but which is really nice, with the OMS product, there's actually a mobile app available on all platforms, so iOS, Android, and Windows devices, so that when you have an OMS workspace, you have those solutions enabled from your tablet, from your phone. You can quickly see what's happening in the environment wherever you are, which is quite helpful as well. And I see some people are typing, so we'll give that a moment. Good question. Yeah, so there's a question around, in case anyone isn't seeing the chat, keeping the data in the Microsoft Canadian data centers when those come online. I don't have a direct answer currently if that will be an option, because the OMS is more used as software as a service kind of platform. So Microsoft makes it highly available all over the Azure data centers. I'm not sure if there will be segregation automatically behind the scenes based on where you as a customer are located, that the storage account that's automatically created for your workspace, if that will be in the Canadian data centers directly. That's a good question. I can follow up on that for you. and see if Microsoft can elaborate specifically, especially with the Canadian data centers, which are coming online very shortly. Good question, though. Yeah, there's always lots of questions around data sovereignty and residency, and so there's a lot of interest with the Canadian data centers coming online. So, very good.
Okay, well, thank you everyone who attended. We will send out the follow-up email, which you can respond to if you do have direct questions or let us know. We will get the questions to the right place or get them answered. And additionally, the recording will be included in that. So we look forward to speaking with you in the future, and thank you for joining us.
Yep. So in the follow-up email, if you're interested in that one-day POC program, let us know, and we can get you in touch with the right Microsoft channel so that we can assist to get that set up for you too.